are not able to be certain that there is even visa racketeering. And that is why we have taken a serious view of the matter, and we believe that it ought to be investigated. And that if there indeed was or is any visa racketeering, whoever is involved should be properly dealt with according to law.
I think that the GOC themselves have to take a very strong position. A strong position on the following. One, transparency. People need to understand the process and therefore culpability. People don't need to hide behind that. The process insofar as how do people go to an event? Which of the sports federation heads, first and foremost, recommends people to participate or to support? And what is the legitimacy in that? And where there isn't any, we need to look at that process. And those presidents, any of us, should be brought to book and held to task. Then we have to look at our own internal system. What is it that our Secretary General signs off for? And what is the mandate to sign off? At what level?
I feel that there are agents too. There are agents. That's why we want to continue with investigations. You know, we don't want to do anything or say anything to mar the beauty and the essence for which we're in Australia. We just want to concentrate on the games, after which I told you earlier that it is not just these supposed two officials from the National Sports Authority who have been fingered. If you read the Graphic Sports story on Friday, said that Ben Nunu Mensah says there are 5 other officials he would want to report to the Minister of Youth and Sports. Now, what I know is that some federation heads have been fingered in this saga, and the GOC will take the appropriate action against them. Like I said, you would get the details of the investigations conducted by the GOC when the games are over. But whoever is involved, the GOC reprimand, we cannot. We refer them to the appropriate masters or bodies to be responsible for their reprimand.
You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis show. My guests, Dr. Odro Osai, Kweku Bako, Isaac Adongo, and Nana Akomia. And you just heard the suspended Deputy Minister of Sports, Pius Hajide. You heard Charles Osei Sibe, right, who is with the GOC, Ghana Olympic Committee, and Herbert Mensah, who also made comments and asking for the right things to be done. As you know, we went to the games, the CommonWealth Games in Australia, and somehow, just somehow, there's been something about visa racketeering, and 73 persons claimed to be the journalists who went, have been deported, and now, as we speak, we are now being told that some, athletes, at least 5 of them, have been unaccounted for. Some left the games grounds even before the games ended. And as you know, a good number of people have been suspended so far. And some investigation is supposed to go on to find out what exactly went wrong. Let me just read this bit of an introduction from a JoyNews, a Joy Sports report, which says that further to official confirmation that 2 athletes from the Ghana contingent to the just ended CommonWealth Games have gone missing, Joy Sports can confirm that they were not the only ones. A total of 5 athletes cannot be accounted for. According to Joy Sports information, Ruth Baffo, a weightlifter, competed at the games but absconded from the team camp. 2 others left the camp village even before the opening ceremony. Oh, why did you go? Even before the opening ceremony. An official with knowledge of the matter explains that the absence of the 2 was noted at a routine roll call after the team landed in Australia. Official, however, will not confirm or deny if Australian authorities were notified. And all of this is coming on the back of several issues about the game and the suspension of certain individuals. So maybe I should start on this note with Isaac. What will be your comments about what has gone on so far, which has led to suspension of key officials? We are told that also even within the NSA, you know, some people too have been suspended, and as one of their members told us, some 5 other people are on the line to be suspended.
Well, I think it's a very disappointing situation. Clearly, as a country, we should be counting medals now. But we are rather counting who is unaccounted for.
Right.
And I think that is that takes us way back, and I don't think this is the conversation we would have wished to have. But be it as it may, what it simply tells us is that there is a lot that we need to improve on. I'm not privy to the kind of information that informed the suspension of the other officers. Because ordinarily you would expect that...
The letters we have had from the presidency have been very clear that there is good grounds, like the lawyers will say, prima facie, on the face of it, that some wrongdoing has gone on. That's why they've been suspended.
Okay, that's a good start. But between the minister and the deputy minister, who plays what role? Because the minister is in charge of the ministry and only delegates responsibility to someone else. And therefore, in most instances, you would expect that even if the minister is not immediately culpable, he would say that I want to step aside for investigations to continue, because you are the ultimate head of that body. And so, like I'm saying, I don't know what exactly has gone into establishing that prima facie case, except to say that there's a prima facie case. But I would have thought that for purposes of ensuring that there's a level playing field and nobody, and I'm not suggesting the minister is culpable in this, but it will be a good practice for him to say, under the circumstances, I want to stay off for you to conduct your investigations, and when you are done, and my hands are clean, I can come back. But that is the prerogative of the president. The issue about the journalists, you are giving me some education as to how the protocols work. But I think that given the experience we have had now, and I want to believe that this might have been happening for some time on the blank side of most events. But given that we've now had the opportunity to know this is possible, how do we interface to ensure that we have a much tighter regime? That is, because the ultimate embarrassment comes to us as a country. And so even if the protocols do not directly involve us, I think that under the circumstances and to demonstrate a very strong commitment to the international community that we abhor this, we should be making input to ensure that we play a role in the screening of these, what do you call it, journalists in future events, so that it doesn't come across as though we've left the institutions that were originally mandated to do this, whose institutions have actually failed woefully, because you can see that the due diligence wasn't properly done. And at the end of the day, it is us that it reflects negatively on. And so I think as a country, we should be seeking to make some proposals to improve the protocols, particularly in relation to us, and to demonstrate to the international community that we want to improve on this process. On the part of the athletes, it also brings to question how these athletes qualify in the first place to attend the program. because you would normally have to go through very competitive selection process before you can then have the opportunity to go and represent the country. So for a professional athlete, it will be almost impossible to abscond, especially when before the games have started, you are already out of the team and somewhere. So we are already short on numbers even before the game starts. So that also brings to question the selection process, and we need to look at that very closely, because I know in other jurisdictions there will be some qualifying games here and there, and even before you go, people are quite familiar with the names and the performances, particularly those who are interested in those fields of endeavor are already aware. The names are on everybody's list. This person beat the qualifying mark, and this person, so that it doesn't turn out that at the end of the day we have sent people who right from day one were not intending to represent the country. We don't only get embarrassed, but also we don't get the medals that we are spending the money to bring home, because we don't participate in the
apparently
events.
This was the trip that was expected to yield the best results, because the authorities had been touting preparation that they had done in advance. Unfortunately, most abysmal.
And the people, in fact, there's a video of an interview that I watched where our cyclists were saying that they didn't even have the kind of bicycles that they needed to engage in. At some point, it was that a good Samaritan chose to even coach our cyclists. I don't know how true that is, but if these are all true, then I think that there has to be a far-reaching investigation into this.
But there were initial claims of substandard, sporting wear or equipment that the people had brought, and somebody or some group had to solicit support.
Yeah, in order to support that.
To support them, but that one has been, denied, and I think there's been an apology from those who published that news.
That's all right. So, but I think that we should do a more far-reaching. Let's review the entire program, our participation. Let's look at whether or not there's some learning that we can take forward in improving future participation and the processes that are involved. And then let's also find out how, as a country, we can reassure the international community. Said that when we are even sending our very genuine athletes and journalists, they are not treated in a certain way, right, because of what happened. And I think that we need to work towards getting that out of the way.
Okay. Your point about why the minister himself may not have, suffered any suspension because he's the ultimate and ought to have taken a similar situation. There's a lot of this discussion on sports networks that seem to say that ought to have been the case. Will your view be different if you got to know that there was a committee set up to particularly oversee, the arrangement towards these games in Australia, and that committee was chaired by the deputy minister, and therefore, if he was the chair of that committee, you can't expect that the minister should suffer a suspension?
So the committee works under whose direction and under whose leadership? Who developed the terms of reference for that committee? And at the end of the day, does the minister take interest in reviewing the things that the committee is doing in order to be satisfied that at the end of the day, my ministry is going to deliver? So yes, you might put together a committee, but technically that is an advisory body. You need to be interested in what that committee is doing. You need to be getting feedback from that committee. You need to be engaging in meetings to be able to review some of the activities that are going on, and to be able to get to a point where you believe that the committee has covered all grounds. Okay. And so when that happens, clearly it could be that if you had gotten a little bit more involved and understanding the issues, and I'm not saying he probably didn't do that, but from sitting from outside, anybody would say that a committee doesn't absolve me from my responsibility to manage the ministry, because I need to be sure that the committee is living to its mandate. They are working to the terms of reference, and that everything else is covered by the time the team sets off, up to the time the team comes. And in fact, the post-event monitoring and review reports should be giving me some indications. And so even whilst they are there, you may still want to find out whether certain things are going right, what exactly is happening. But I'm not suggesting that he might not have done that. But I'm saying under the circumstances, once he believes that he's clean and he hasn't done anything, you don't need the president to ask you to step aside. Sometimes,
you should do that himself.
Professionally, you can say, look, I want to step aside because this is a major matter and I want the processes to be concluded, and then I'll come back.
Interesting. Here in this country, where when there is an accusation and people are to be presumed innocent until investigations are completed, and yet just the accusation alone is enough for people to say that, you know, you should go home. There are those who feel that's not good enough. But Nana, and maybe I should post this caveat first. Maybe I should put this caveat that, you know, a number of people have been suspended, and I must say that they have been attending to the CID because there's an investigation going on, and I happen to lead one of those involved to the CID as their lawyer. Now, do you find that the embarrassment, and it doesn't seem to have ended, we are getting more news, the people who feel they ought to have swifter actions, some drastic things should have been seen rather than what we are hearing. The sports fraternity is not excited at all.
This business of the minister should have stepped aside. I believe it's a very cynical reaction from my friends in the NDC.
No, sports journalists have been asking for it.
Whoever is you and your collaborators in the NDC. It's a very cynical attitude. I mean, this business of ultimate responsibility, Samson, if you stretch it, then the president himself should step aside. Yes, because it's the president who supervises the minister. So please, what is this? These suspensions that have come about are the results of preliminary investigation. So they are not based on ultimate responsibility. They are based on findings made. And those findings need further investigation. That is why the officers have been asked to step aside. It could even be that on some of the fake visa applications, somebody's signatures were there. So you need to go through a procedure. How come the person whose signature was there, how come the signature is there? Is the signature even authentic? So finding your signature, I'm not saying that is the case, but I'm saying finding an official signature on some of the fake applications alone could trigger this kind of suspension whilst we go through the process of finding out if the person did due diligence before they appended their signature to those applications, or if even their signature. So all of these are issues that will be resolved upon proper investigation.
It does appear that you would discover that Team Ghana, which was 109 members, 109 including dignitaries, when they were going, and they, from the information we gather, were the ones that the authorities were responsible for the accreditation. And you would discover that they didn't have any problem entering or returning from Australia. So the suggestion is that it's a bit of a stretch to suggest that these, authorities and entities would have done something wrong.
We are talking about the fake applications. That's what we are talking about. Those 50
who were deported.
Who were deported. And that is what the investigation is about. And I'm saying that the actions taken by the president are not based on ultimate responsibility. They are based on findings coming out of preliminary investigations. Right. And the announcement stated that very clearly. So this business of, there's ultimate responsibility and the minister, it's a cynical that should not be entertained. We should praise the president for the swift action he has taken, even in the absence of full, final, conclusive investigations. The mere hint of culpability has led the president to take this action. And it should signal, it should send to us a certain confidence that these investigations will be carried through to their logical conclusions. We don't see this happening often in this country. But this whole business of this international participation, in games and so on, poor countries has been a feature of our participation. Poor countries participating in games held in rich countries. You find this happening all the time, to our embarrassment. I mean, before the Ghanaian athletes, we heard of other countries where the athletes have left the village before the first game. And the Australian authorities were saying, well, their visas have not expired. So as far as the Australian authorities were concerned, they were still legitimate visitors to the country. But whole teams abscond from other African countries, and it's hit Ghana. And it's been happening all the time. I remember in Brazil, a whole airplane full of supporters decided they would not come back. You know, even athletes who have trained for months, they go and they would abscond. And it's all just a continuing embarrassment. And then you have those who actually are illegitimate applicants for visas, like the 50 fake journalists. And that one, because there will be official documentation to cover them, and those documentation will have places where they originated as signatures, it can easily be checked. And I'm happy that the president himself is seized of the matter and is taking a direct interest and has taken these preliminary actions in suspending people. The other bit about the cycling team, another unwarranted source of embarrassment. We're already suffering embarrassment from fake supporters and journalists. We're suffering from athletes missing. Then this cycling team, you've been provided with the basic equipment that you need to compete. Somebody goes to tell them that, look, if we did this thing on the media that you don't have the equipment, there are a lot of Australians who give you the equipment. And then they fall for it. And then allow themselves to be used and be shown not to have the proper gear, the proper equipment, placing Ghana in such a terrible light that we will send people to Australia all that way, buy plane tickets and all of that, and we couldn't buy them bicycles to compete. And it was all a scam. Embarrassing the country no end. And I wish that those particular individuals involved, and we all saw the videos, they should be sanctioned severely for the embarrassment that they brought to the country. We're already suffering. Now, my last point is that something. These international competitions always come with one difficulty or the other. We've seen Maputo. We've seen South Africa. We've seen Brazil. In the case of Brazil, a whole, ministerial commission was set up, made up of very, very busy, prominent but busy people, spend lots of time, lots of media space was devoted, and nothing seems to have come out of it.
So it's been recurring, and your question now is,
my question
when will
now
it stop?
is this time, let us see that the investigations are concluded and some serious action taken. Otherwise, we'll make all of this, we'll cry, and then all this hey goes on. And the next time it will happen again.
Nana Kumia has hopes that the investigations will produce some sanctions that will, stop the recurrent situation. But the minority, were very quick early to reject a security investigation and ask for an independent commission of inquiry under Article 278 of the Constitution to probe this matter.
Well, they were entitled to make that call. That's their opinion.
I didn't know you would go there. I would have finished.
What the Brazilian thing, was it not under that same provision?
Brazil, yeah.
That was under the same
Brazil.
provision. Yes. What was the result now?
After we got the white papers and everything else, it doesn't look like anything has happened.
There was a Maputo.
Before the Brazil.
There were some investigations. I'm not sure it was done under the provision the minority called for. But what was the result? That's perhaps why Akomia is hoping, and I'm hoping too, and praying that this particular investigations would lead us to, a certain solution. Not too sure, but I'm hoping and praying. But look, let me start step by step. The ministerial responsibility principle thing. What if there is record to show that the preliminary investigation, which actually began in Australia whilst the minister was there, was triggered by the minister? And indeed, the report that got to the presidency was at the behest of the minister. What would we say? Would we still ask that the minister steps aside? When indeed the story broke in Australia, he was there, because apparently there was a meeting of ministers or so there. And then the Ghanaian mission there is activated to consult with the Australian authorities, immigration authorities. The matter was confirmed to be true. 60 Ghanaians, fake journalists as it were, had been detained. So the minister and the authorities there conduct preliminary investigations in Australia, which led to the expulsion of 2 officials of the National Sports Authority who were there. They were expelled by the Ghanaian contingent. When they landed in Ghana, the national security picked them up for further investigations. The minister returned to Ghana, consulted his deputy as well as the chairman, or is it the director general rather, of the National Sports Authority, as a continuation of the investigations that had begun in Australia, resulting in a report being sent to the presidency, after which the president then issued, that is through the communications director, the statement that was issued. Right. If you have this sequence of events, then it will be difficult to say that the minister should step aside, in my candid opinion. But beyond that, and of course, you have to ask what kind of report went to the presidency.
But the GOC member who spoke, Osesibe, seems to, or not seems to, he actually says that internal processes are going on, 5 people and so on. So what do you understand? Is that parallel to the CID investigation? Well,
nothing stops the ministry or the sports authority from conducting their own independent checks on the issues. Okay. After all, eventually they will need to do some fine-tuning of the administrative structures, internal control systems and the rest. So nothing stops them. That's no substitute for criminal investigations by a statutory agency like the police, CID. And eventually may not be even mutually exclusive. They can complement each other the way forward, looking for solutions that are sustainable. But you see, look, this country, we have a long journey. We are talking of visa scams. The 5 at least who didn't come back, they were genuinely processed and issued with visa. And they have refused to come back. It's an embarrassment, but that's not the first time. We've had this experience over the years. So I'll put that aside. But there's enough evidence to show that this subculture of visa scams has been going on. See, I'll tell you something. There is this letter I have here. It's from the National Sports Authority. It's dated 16 June 2017. It's a letter written and sent to the American Embassy, the Council Visa Section, requesting a visa for a so-called national football supporters of Ghana. The Black Stars were due to engage in some 2 separate international friendly matches in the United States. And this letter was written officially from the National Sports Authority and delivered to the U.S. Embassy for these applications to be processed. It turned out that was a scam. There is this letter here, also from the Hungarian Embassy to the Ministry of Youth and Sports, dated March 8, 2018. Apparently, the Boxing Federation, Ghana Boxing Federation, wrote a letter to the embassy on behalf of 12 boxers that they were going to Hungary to engage in some boxing tournament. So they processed them. At the end of the day, only 4 went and returned. The 8 that got there vamoosed into thin air. So this is a letter dated March 8, 2018 from the Hungarian embassy expressing displeasure and disappointment. And I would want to read some 4 portions for you to see the impact. It says, since the 12th of February 2018, the consular section of the Embassy of Hungary has been in daily contact with the Ghana Boxing Federation about the issue of the missing 8 members of the delegation. The 8 members have failed to appear at the embassy to date. The Federation has been giving several different reasons and excuses why the missing 8 members are not available. The consular section of the Embassy of Hungary has requested the assistance of the Ghana Immigration Service. According to the informal response of the Ghana Immigration Service, the above-mentioned 8 members left Ghana on the 5th of February 2018 and have not arrived back since. Their visas expired on the 12th of February 2018. The Embassy of Hungary kindly requests the assistance of the esteemed ministry for further investigations concerning the matter. This unfortunate case is jeopardizing the bilateral relations between the Republic of Ghana and Hungary and could have a negative impact on the future of sports relations. This letter, the letter that requested the visa, was written and signed by a top official of the National Sports Authority. Okay? Whose name is available for good reasons. I won't mention it. He's not here to defend himself immediately. The earlier letter too was written by a top official of the National Sports Authority. I'll apply the same principle. I won't mention his name here.
But the earlier one was fake or authentic?
Both. No, authentic. Both went. But it turned out that the people were genuinely not members of any so-called football supporters union that were required to be there to give our boys moral support.
Right.
If they had gotten the visa and they entered the U.S. jurisdiction, they will vamoose into thin air, disappear. Okay, so it's a subculture and it's been there for a long time, let me be honest, but we are dealing with current issues.
Right.
And the focus is on this current issue. I have a problem. You see, we even took, and the report, the preliminary report, I have intercepted a copy. We actually even took a beach volleyball team, which was not registered. We were not entitled to take part in that tournament, but we took them there. Now you see, the officials who, some were recalled, and some have been asked to step aside. Again, there's a record to show that 2 of them admitted, okay, that they actually helped to insert 4 names, in total 9. One said he helped to insert 4 names, the other 5 names. These were not part of the official delegation, neither were they part of the athletes. Now, if you hold responsible position, highly placed position, in trust for the people, and you take advantage of this process, this tournament, and help to insert 4 and the other insert 5, in principle, it doesn't matter if it's 1. You violated the protocols. You have engaged in an act that ought not to be done. Yeah, we'll wait for final investigations. But clearly, in my opinion, that's gone out of the window. Okay? I said the deputy minister, the GOC,
Ghana Olympic Committee.
Yes, they were those who were seeking to implicate the deputy minister. The deputy minister denies everything that is being pushed on him, but they were implicating him. And it's on the basis of that that the deputy minister was asked to step aside. But you see, that recommendation of the deputy minister stepping aside is contained in the preliminary report. Yes. And I found it very interesting. On one level, we are told, and see, let me just be very blunt here.
You have to teach us how to intercept this report.
It's my work.
But you have some here.
See,
I have to be intercepting them.
on one level, recommendation number 2 says, since the deputy minister has denied any wrongdoing, it may be prudent to wait for the result of the investigation to determine the appropriate action to take. Makes sense to me. Then you come to recommendation 8. It says the Deputy Minister of Youth and Sports, on Pius Enam Hazi, is that the name? Yes, he's a friend, but unfortunately, you should forgive me, I couldn't pronounce his name properly. And the Deputy and the Director General of National Sports Authority should be interdicted with immediate effect pending the outcome of the ongoing investigations. There's a little contradiction there. But that is the basis for the Deputy Minister's interdiction or suspension or stepping aside.
Not that he's the chair of the committee for these arrangements?
No, there were accusations made against him which he denies.
Okay.
And vehemently so. And these allegations are coming from within the GOC. Their president is Mr.
Right.
There are many police criminal investigations that are held indoors or on the quiet. Bottom line is the integrity of the investigations. Fortunately, you have just disclosed you are leading somebody there. And I know you will not allow any hanky-panky games to be.
And I can tell you the difficulty I find myself in now as you speak because of lawyer-client confidentiality.
That's the point.
Because he's saying things that I think I may know a little better.
See,
but I can't
fortunately,
say.
I haven't mentioned names.
Right, that's
so
fine.
we are not sure which
That's
one
fine.
you are
That's fine,
representing.
that's okay.
But to
That's
be
okay.
honest with you, this matter stinks. And the police must be thorough in their investigations. It may be one way of helping to cure that mischief, that subculture.
Okay. Doc.
I think I have to intercept your document before I do that.
It's highly classified
I have to intercept
to the
it.
extent that people have asked for it, but I'm unable to share.
Okay.
Because you see, there's a trail. You see where I
I'm not
intercepted
going to
it.
call. I will intercept it like you did.
I hear you.
So Doc, what we know is that when these games are to be done, any time or any year that there's supposed to be Olympic, games, there will be a committee that will be set up by the ministry. And just like previously, they did the same this time. And it was a minister that was the chair of that committee. And there are members from the other authorities and the GOC to ensure that the preparation is smooth and Ghana's participation, gives us the best of results. Unfortunately, this is the situation. It does appear that so far, what they are seeking to say, almost all of them, is that for as long as the 109 Team Ghana didn't have any problem entering and any problem returning, but it is a journalist list, so to speak, that has a problem, you shouldn't blame them at all, because the group that they took care of was the Team Ghana. And that when it comes to journalists, you have heard them say that, media houses apply on their own.
No, I disagree with that school of thought because under normal circumstances, you are a committee and you cannot be absolved from any responsibility if there's a failure. You have to be responsible for all the preparatory activities, including even the journalists, because journalists are going there because Team Ghana is going. They're not going there because Team Nigeria or Team Senegal is going. So they should be responsible, you see. But I think this canker must end some way, somehow. It requires systemic overhaul. We need to put in place appropriate quality assurance system from day one. Preparatory activities in Ghana, on the day of the events or the games, and even the system must work in such a way that we are able to quality assure and everybody comes back. I always have a problem if in matters like that we target only politicians, because we also have administrators working in the system. And I'm sure that most of these letters are written by the administrators or on behalf of the ministers by the administrators. So I think it's about time we look at the system again. We do a systemic overhaul. We hold people responsible. On the issue of the minister...
The accreditation for the journalists.
Journalists, yes.
This is what was generated, the list that the journalists have been speaking about, which list
Was it generated by the GJ?
I'm coming.
No,
No, the GJ actually says it doesn't know this is generated.
Individual media houses who apply to the games organizers.
Right.
Then the games organizers forward the list to the Olympic Committee for validation.
And they
so
validate.
The ministry really has nothing to do with that too.
Yes, now that's the claim. That's the claim. And the list, some of the media houses actually are disputing. They don't know some of the people whose names have been assigned to their media houses. Wow. They are non-existent in their media establishment. But this is the list as generated by the organizers outside of Ghana and sent through the Ghana, authority.
Sure.
And this is what they say. These organizations, as in the media organizations, have applied for press accreditation and submitted names against each accreditation they have been awarded. You are not required to make any comments or submit any reviews. This is purely for information purposes only. Should you have any questions regarding this information, please contact press.services@goldoc.com. So this is what is sent to the Ghanaian authority.
Okay.
And they are being told that you are not required to make any comments or submit any reviews. This is purely for information purposes only. Should you have any questions regarding this information, please contact us.
Good.
And by Ghanaian authorities, what do you mean specifically?
As in
maybe the committee or the ministry.
It will be through the committee.
The committee.
And I understand that there will be a media liaison that will deal with this.
Okay. The committee works on behalf of the ministry, if I understand the structure. And they have submitted this list to you for verification, validation, but they said you cannot make any changes or reviews. But then you are being given a window of opportunity to come up with questions.
Right.
Did they send any questions to the institution that brought them this list? Because if you have gone through it and you realize that there are anomalies in it, you are responsible for the successful implementation of everything about the games. You work on behalf of the ministry. So what did they say, or which questions did they put, or what did they say about this particular list? Is it that they left the list to go like that? I mean, these are questions we need to ask, and answers must be given. But whichever way you look at it, the committee was working on behalf of the ministry. So the committee cannot run away from anything that happens at the games that brings Ghana's name in disrepute. On the reasons why the deputy minister has been asked to step aside, maybe for good reasons, to ensure that we'll be able to come up with the truth. But ultimately, I would expect the minister, in case the report comes out, and it so happens that the minister never quality assures some aspects of the processes, he should be bold to accept responsibility and come up with remedial measures to prevent it from recurring.
If he gave the job to his deputy, as we know now, and gave the deputy, complete free hand to ensure that things are done, why should he be brought in the picture?
If you are my deputy, you work through me. You are implementing an assignment on my behalf.
And you have set up a committee of responsible adults.
Yes, but the committee is also working for you. You are ultimately responsible.
Okay, Kweku, briefly. Yes. And I will speak to somebody who's a member of the Ghana Swimming Association who has some comments to make.
Whilst I will not be against any scrutiny of ministerial role, including deputy ministerial role, in terms of governmental action. The federations, those federations, see, this kind of games, they have a certain protocol. Most times, government's role are very diffused. It's a principle the games push.
Like facilitating?
Yes. So the federations and the Ghana Olympic Committee, these two put together, we should closely and critically examine them.
Okay. So let's speak to Farida Idris, who is
US at this point. First of all, the media accreditation issue. I think it should be first straight that the media accreditation issue ended before the new GOC board started. That is, it ended in November 2016. And so in 2017, when the new GOC board was elected, they called the GODOC, that is the Gold Coast Organizing Committee, to kindly open another chance for media people who could not register under the press GODOC system. And so the media, the journalists who applied for the accreditation did it independently. For example, something you are Joy FM and you sit at Joy FM, apply to the GODOC system. They ask you how many journalists are coming from Joy FM, and you said, okay, I'm coming, my cameraman is coming, and also another reporter will join me. And then when it is accepted, it is sent to the Ghana Olympic Committee for validation. Just like you read that you are not to comment, but they also give you room to make your complaints through the press and accreditation committee. That is, in another breath, they are telling you not to make a comment, but you can also talk if you have another issue, because that is what has been the powers that has been given to the chef de mission, who is the president of the Ghana Cycling Federation. That is Lawyer Shanu. And so if there was a concern and it wasn't raised, these journalists were validated by the GOC and sent back to the GODOC. The accreditation and visa was brought. Because as I tell you, I got my visa electronically. There was no visa that was given on a sticker. It was all electronic visa. Our visa was issued on the 12th of November, 2017, a day before the International Games Committee was inaugurated. Because our visa was issued on the 12th of November, the International Games Committee was inaugurated by the minister on the 13th of November, 2017.
Okay.
So including the press accreditation validation and the long list coming from the Federation, our visa was processed on the 12th of November 2017. And so if there is any issue, just like the Ghana Swimming Association has an issue with 16 additional names added to our list that we submitted to the chef de mission, I have written an official letter to the GOC, copied to the police CID, to help the chef de mission tell me how come 10 names that are submitted turn out to be 26 names. So I think that there are people who are supposed to answer the question, because there's no way that the Ghana Olympic Committee can be picking up. And just like you said, I was privileged, even before he saw the report sent to the president, I took my complaints to the Ministry of Youth and Sport, and I was privileged to see Dr. Owusu Ansah, the technical advisor to the minister, writing that report. And I can tell you for a fact, wherever I'm called, I can stand in. The chief director of the Ministry of Youth and Sport hasn't even seen the report that has been sent to the president. It is not an allegation. I'm making this fact. Okay. And I can stand in anywhere that I'm called. The report was written by Dr. Owusu Ansah.
Okay. Have you been to the CID yourself?
Haven't been called yet, but I have made my complaint. I have sent a copy of my complaint to the Ministry of Youth and Sport. So if you see, the Ghana Swimming Association has an official letter suspending the deputy treasurer of the Ghana Olympic Committee, who is also our president. We suspended him based on an internal investigation that we've done.
Okay. I see. Interesting. But like you said, the chief de mission or mission is also under investigation. So like you say, he has questions to answer, because if you submitted a name or 10 names and he ended up 15 names and he was responsible, then obviously he has questions to answer. Thank you very much, Farida.
Thank you very much.
Right. So Farida Idris is a board member of the Ghana Swimming Association, and it does appear that we'll begin to see and hear things.
I must confess, I admire her courage.
You do. Thank you very much. So we will take we'll take a break here, and we will. When we return, we have very limited time. But Dr. Oduro is here, so maybe MMDCs. When are we going to have them? Let's have him give us a perspective because of his peculiar expertise. We'll be right back.